Hello everyone, I'm Rishabh, a geek like you here at GeekyAnts. So today I'm gonna talk more about the how to we achieve a static dynamic pages by using a static powers. So previously I was working on a project where we needed a performance of the pages very high, but still wanted to have a dynamic contents to be displayed. So in after researching a lot, we came up with a strategies called ISR. So before just jumping on the ISRs, let's just talk about more different strategies that we have in Next.JS. So basically, we use four different type of strategies in here. Next.js is server side rendering, client side rendering, the latest one static side generations, and the new one incremental static regenerations. So if we just talk more about the generally a build process of the Next.js, so it's just having a source codes. Then we have a source code for the build pages. We push that to the server, and then we have the latest one to the client where we directly get the response from the server on the web browser. Web browser can anything like phone or web browsers. So moving ahead, if we have discussed first about the client, so I just made a simple diagram to get to know about the different type of renderings. So in build, we just basically in web pages we have HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. We push all the code directly to the server, like in a separate files in client side rendering. And then whenever the client hits the users, we just send them directly HTML. Then we throw all the JavaScript directly on a blank HTML page. Then it's JavaScript task to render the entire page painted on a client by using a client sites. So it takes a lot of time in a client side to render the entire page on a screen. If it requires more and more CSS or a JavaScript, it will again send a request to the server, get that information, and then paint it again on a screen. So if we just notice in this side of rendering, there is always a processing happening on a client side, which decreases the performance. That's why it's score we see in a React. There's always a possibilities of a low SEOs because there's always a blank page that has been sent to the client side. So moving, then we had another one which is like server side rendering, which has got few better than the client side rendering. On this sides of rendering, we just pushed all the rendering processes on the server. The server do all the painting tasks and then directly sends to the client. But there is always a problem here also there that for every time we have to send a request to the server and get that page. So there is a latency. It's always happening in this type of rendering strategies. The server has to do every time the paint the page and then send it to the client. Moving ahead with the third one, we have a static site generation. This strategies has saved a lot of problems that we are facing in the time. If we are using a WordPress application, the performance is already slow. But by using SSD, we can increase the performance drastically because any application that is using a CMS content sites. So we know what are the content that is going to be placed on a server, right? So we just make all the pages on a build time only, fetch the data and send it to the server and directly push it to the client so that we decrease the painting time and the fetching and the server's time. That's how. But still, there is a problem here too. What the problem? The problem here is like all the pages that are built on a build time. So we do not get a dynamic data. If we refetch data, we'll still get the stale data only. Next up, we have a content freshness problem that there's a possibility that we are getting the previous data, not the latest one. And then another one, handling dynamic data. If the data is just changing very frequently, then how we'll get the data, a latest one. So again, we have to build the page, then only we'll get it. And if we compare directly with server-side renderings, there's also a problem of so in server-side rendering, we have a problem of on demand. Like every time a user sends a request, we have a problem of rendering. Again, it will render the entire page. Then next up, we have a latency issues too in server-side rendering. Like it sends the server request and server sends back the response. So always there is a time gap, and it also depends upon the user geographical location from the difference between the servers. Then if we talk more about it, if the traffic is getting more and more, Then the server side processing will also be increased. That also increase our cost and server processings. So to overcome all of these, we have a new strategies in Next.js, which we call as incremental static regenerations. So it has a sweet spot between the SSR and SSG. What it does, it provides us a solution that combines the benefits of both static side generations and also the server side rendering. How exactly? So if we talk about how exactly it does, like it provides us a static page during the build page, but still gives us a possible chances to do a background regenerations. That's how it did the latest data from the backend and displays on the screen, still maintaining the performance of a static site generations. Just moving ahead, how actually we do in the coding part. So in the how actually we do what we do is just we provide a revalidate prop in that. Whatever value we give in a revalidate, it takes in a seconds and revalidate entire page and update the content with the latest one. So we still have a stale data that will be displayed on a screen during the regeneration is happening. Moving ahead, if we talk more about the workflow about it, so what happened in the if we see is that 0 stents, we have generated a page. Whatever revalidate time we have set, let's suppose we have set is as a 60 seconds as a revalidate time. Then what happened during these 60 seconds, whatever data that we have got, it will be stored in a cache. And then every time the user requests, the same data will be displayed without making an API call. Directly, it will show you the data that is available here. After 60 seconds of whatever read validate time that we have set, it will fetch the data again, generates a new page, updates the cache, and then a latest version of the data will be displayed to us, which is V2 version. And this cycle will keep going on after every revalidation is happening, keep going on till we are loading the page. By this, we'll get a latest data every time, but still we have a stale data to be displayed. Let us suppose that our generated new page has failed, API failed. We still have a data to be shown, the previous one that has been stored to us. So if we just move to the coding part, like how it's exactly we code it. So for that, I have made a very good project to be displayed. So I made a simple application that fetches the data from a MongoDB, which displays some block, and I have a APIs to display, get all the data, and another page which is we can use to add more and more data to the blog sites. So if we just try to build this page, we can notice it's a static page. If we run this npm run build, we have this page will be still a static one, but add blog page will be a dynamic one. And still we can get the latest data on this page. If you see, this is the load page is a circle one, which is our static page. For data fetching, we have a function which using a fetch to get the data. So actually what we do, we just passed a revalidate prop here in a seconds. Just I have added a 30 seconds to revalidate every data. So in every 30 for next 30 seconds, it generates a revalidation and get the latest data from the blog. Till then, it will display only the stale data that it has. So if you see, I have added two already data that is being displayed here. So for if we try to add another one, let's suppose says add v. So it's updated, but still it not be displayed because revalidation has not occurred. It will still displaying the same data. If you notice in MongoDB, it has been updated. We have the third data, but here we will not get it till the time has been expired and the regenerations occurred. Whatever time that we set here will be displayed. If you notice, after 30 seconds, we'll get that data. So in that way, if you notice, we have increased the performance drastically. We have a data, not and every refresh, we're not making an API call again and again and make you block the users on this server. So what exactly happens here is So if we try to understand what happened in ISR, we have a first initially we have make user has requested and we get the version 1 of the data. Then during this revalidation phase only the DB has been changed, but still we are getting the version 1 data even if the user has requested. Then after the revalidation period has been expired, we have got the new available data. When then the user has requested, we get the new version of it. Then again the revalidation is expired, it will check again and again we'll get the data. But during this phase we'll get the stale data only. So that's how ISRs usually work to get the data and increase the performance of it. If we just directly compare it with SSD or SSR with ISD, in SSD, if we see, we need to rebuild the page every time there is an update of a content. But in ISR, we do not need to do that. There is a partial, it offers us to partially regenerate the individual page, not the entire page. This reduces drastically the build time. And if we compare it with SSR, so SSR will get a fresh content on every result, but there is always a possibility of a lower performance and latencies. But in ISR, there is a slightly problem of a content freshness, but still we get the regenerated page on a background, offers a faster load time. But according to everything, that there is a cons in also in ISR. So there are some chances that we cannot use ISR in every case scenarios. So there are a few pages where we cannot use actually ISR, just like where the data needs to be updated frequently, very frequently, like data is updating, keep updating, like stock prices, applications, cricket scores. So here we cannot use ISR because there's always a possibility of getting a backend previous data, not the latest one. And more if we require. So in that case of scenario, the server side rendering is very good because we'll get the updated data in every period of time. And if we are using ISR, there are some chances that there are some things we need to be very aware of, like the short interval time, the revalidation time. If we are keeping it very short, it will again and again regenerated the page. So then there is no point of using ISR. The performance will keep deteriorating. And if we have to be very sure about what the revalidation time we are putting, so it should match with the actual content updated frequency. Like if the content is updating very in a very long period of time and we put a very validation patch is very low, and there's no point, it will keep updating their page. So we have to be very aware about it, like what should be the revalidation time should be. Thank you.